This is the BrainChip Quarterly Investor Podcast. Join us for answers to some of the most frequently asked questions put forward by BrainChip shareholders each quarter. This podcast is for both existing investors and potential future investors who are interested in the development of AI.
Welcome to the BrainChip Quarterly Investor Podcast series. My name is Tony Dorr, Director of Global Investor Relations for BrainChip. Each quarter, I compile a list of some of our shareholders' most frequently asked questions and put those questions to a senior member of the BrainChip team. Today, I'll be putting those questions directly to BrainChip's CEO, Sean Hehir. Hi, Sean, and welcome back to the BrainChip Quarterly Investor Podcast.
Hi, Tony. Good to be here.
So, Sean, before we discuss some of the exciting activities and events that are coming up in 2024, give our listeners an overview of BrainChip's major achievements for 2023 and the sort of momentum we begin 2024 with.
Sure. Well, 23 was a very busy year for us. And of course, number one on that list of achievements and activities was the release of Akita 2.0. A lot of work went into that. We took a lot of customer feedback, prospect feedback, analyst feedback. It was a complete reintroduction of a product that has a much broader use case and a much better fit for the market. We're very, very excited. And that was a lot of work to get done in the middle of last year, the middle or the second half of last year. Secondly, we brought our second reference chip out, which is, again, another major accomplishment with it, with a lot of very interesting things with it. And we highlighted at CES at the beginning of this year with a lot of interoperability from multiple MCU vendors. We also set in motion a new strategy which is accelerate neuromorphic technology in the edge AI market by seeding certain edge AI boxes. And an edge AI box is a box, a very small box, and you can see them on our website, that can do various workloads. And there's a lot of interest in these boxes. First, we have a collaboration with VVDN, which is a leading system integrator, and it's going well in its progress, and we'll start to have those on pre-sale very, very soon. Unen is another partner developing a box, and we sneak preview that as well at CES, which I'm including in 23 since it was only a couple of days of 24 as we went through that. And then, of course, we have another relationship with Texon. So you could see a lot of interest in this, and we're really intrigued with the possibilities and what this could represent for our company. We've also made a lot of progress with our partnerships. Very important one was something with Intel Foundry Services and Emotion 3D as just an example. All this, and you've heard me speak a lot about our ecosystem effort, all this to give confidence to our prospects and make it easier for partners to implement and deploy our technology. You know, I mentioned CES, and I'll give you a little bit more. You could see at CES the diversity of use case and partners that we showed in the applications. You can see what this can be leading to in the future. You know, another thing about CES, the podcast, I would ask you if you haven't listened to them, to listen to them. It was a whole diversity of speakers and opinions, of which were some very interesting companies that are proud to be associated with. And I think you'll learn a lot about how they see the market, how they see our technology. We also had some very important customer design-ins with companies like Circle 8. Additionally, we've changed the company dramatically. We've grown in regions around the world with sales presence, which are critical for us to succeed. We've expanded our university program by including 3 more universities, and we were granted 4 more patents. And of course, we've added more executive talent in critical places. A lot of change, a lot of building, and a lot of momentum building.
Thanks, Sean. Well, as you've referred to, BrainChip recently attended CES 2024 in Las Vegas. This is the world's leading AI tech showcase, and from what I could tell, BrainChip made quite a splash. So could you outline in a bit more detail what some of the key emergent themes were at CES and how BrainChip is positioned regarding those emergent themes?
Yeah, I was actually there for a couple days myself, and if you heard my podcast, my voice was gone during that time, but I made some comments during my CES podcast. First of all, this was the year of AI. Virtually everything was AI in CES. Everything. I could not find a booth. It was almost a game we played as we'd walk the floor, various floors, to say, "Can anybody find a booth that doesn't have artificial intelligence?" It was pretty hard to do, but further refining on that theme was the concept of AI outside of the data center or edge AI. Basically, if you listen to our podcast or my presentations, the edge can be defined as effectively as anything outside the data center. There's real movement across all industries right now to do artificial intelligence outside the data center. Like all compute paradigms and compute models, they usually start centralized and then they move to a decentralized model. It just makes sense. The right compute model for the right task. You don't need to do everything in the data center. And so that theme was very prevalent about AI outside of the data center, or edge AI, as we like to call it. Another theme that was very, very clear is the power efficiency of edge AI. You just can't keep doing things that are going to be power hungry. And we could see that across a plethora of offerings in the market, and very, very important. There were so many interesting things. I could have stayed there all week if I could have afforded the time, but I had so many other things to do. But the use cases and the power consumptions, I could give you so many examples where there was wearables and health. There was a pillow that was fascinating. It was edge AI to analyze snoring and things like that. Very fascinating use cases. And then, of course, is that point about industries. It's just across everything. So this is the year of AI. Edge AI is getting momentum, and it's going across certainly all industries. The other thing I think I would say, and I didn't say it on my podcast, companies that you would view as maybe as not leaders across industries, as you know, look at industries, there's always guys that jump out ahead and companies that kind of follow. You're seeing followers really come in now. Companies that are known to be fast followers, as you use market jargon, they're all coming in. So nobody's sitting on the sidelines. Everybody in all industries are looking at their AI strategies right now.
So you've already referred to the EdgeBox. So can you provide a bit more of an update on the VVDN EdgeBox and the Unigen Cupcake Edge AI server, both of which are exciting new Edge AI products utilizing our Akida neuromorphic technology?
Sure. So VVDN's a little further along. It was our first collaboration, and as I said a moment ago, it'll go on pre-sale shortly. And they're working to develop a compelling solution that'll cover a whole variety of use cases, whether that's smart city, smart retail, healthcare, elder care, security surveillance, and others. So it's a very versatile box. And if you look at it as kind of an underlying platform, a high performance platform, is the ability to put on the various models and applications to do that. So very excited that they chose us to work with and do that. Similarly, Unigen is very much in the same way. They'll announce their shipping schedule a little bit later, but it'll be a very versatile box, one that can be loaded with across various models and applications and address various industries. I want to really be clear. We are not going to be a box manufacturer. I want to be as clear as possible. We are staying with our IP first strategy, but of course we're going to diversify into these kind of enabling system integrators in the box with some chip sales.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Are there plans to reduce the current cash burn rate to preserve our remaining cash reserves?
As any company, never mind a company like us, we have to be very, very cautious about how we spend our cash. And I'm constantly looking at that with the entire team and examining and rebalancing resources. And in fact, I know you have a question in here a little bit about our strategy session we had coming up, or had last month. Is what I'm presenting to the board is a budget where we're doing a lot more in 24 without more money. So this is a year where we really tighten, really reallocate, and really stress test everything, every single dollar that we can. So there is no discretionary dollar that is not challenged here. So we're really, really cautious about that to ensure that a dollar deployed is leading to maximize the return for our shareholders.
Thanks, Sean. As you know, the company picked up a first strike against its remuneration report at the 2023 annual general meeting. What has the company done to provide investors with more information about the remuneration policies of the company?
Sure. At the 23 AGM, the company received a strike against its remuneration report. Since then, we have engaged with proxy advisors, major shareholders as well, and remuneration consultants to develop a new remuneration policy that has been approved by our board and now available on our website. I would encourage all of our shareholders to review this document and see the work we put into it. That document is available at investors.brainchip.com/governance. I know it reflects what shareholders want, which is all about performance-based compensation.
Thanks, Sean. And following on from that question, I monitor commentary on some of the more popular investor websites in Australia, and there seems to be an attempt by a small but vocal group of people to encourage a vote against the remuneration report at this year's AGM so that BrainChip receives a second strike. Just for the benefit of our listeners, please walk us through what the legal and financial consequences of a second strike are for BrainChip and what you think the likely outcome for shareholders would be.
So first of all, Tony, I want to start with my comment that I respect all shareholders. They own this company, and everybody's opinion is valued and accepted and welcomed here to myself and the entire board. However, having said that, I don't believe, though, that represents the majority of shareholders that I speak to, and it certainly doesn't reflect it in most of the dealings that we see. I think it is a small group of people, and they're frustrated, and I understand their frustration, but I don't think it reflects the majority of people, or even it's a small percentage of it that it reflects. Secondly, I really believe another strike would do nothing to improve the price. I'm working, and the entire management team is working on the fundamentals of our business, making the product the very best it can, understanding our competition, selling hard against it every single day. That's where my energy is going. That's where this team is going. This is, again, it's part of living in a public environment, and I respect it, and we'll deal with it if it happens, but I don't think it's going to do anything to change the trajectory of this company. In fact, it could be a distraction. We will deal with it, of course, if we need to, and I think it could be a distraction in terms of energy and in terms of money.
Late last year, the company announced two major appointments. The first was Dr. Tony Lewis joining us as our new Chief Technology Officer. Tony replaces our founder and former CTO, Peter van der Meijde, who remains a non-executive director but is now retired from working as an executive for the company. The second major appointment was Steve Thorne as our new head of sales. It must be very reassuring that BrainChip can attract two people of such talent and quality. Would you like to provide some background on both new appointees and describe how they've fitted into the BrainChip team since coming on board?
Sure, a lot to talk about here. First of all, it is very reassuring to your comment that we can attract that kind of talent. And I would tell you, as part of the interview process, the quality of candidates that I had to choose from was very high, which again, I think speaks to what people in the industry know we have here. And they see the opportunity here that we can attract that kind of talent and those kind of candidates, quite frankly, that I had to say no to because I wanted the very best. But having said that, before I talk about them, no comment would ever be sufficient if I didn't pause and thank Peter, first of all. You know, Peter started this company and set us on a course of direction, and for that, we will always be thankful. And Peter remains on the board, as you say. I certainly may remain in contact with Peter, but we're always very thankful for Peter's contributions to that. Tony, Dr. Lewis, whatever you want to call him, is a world leader in the field of neuromorphic AI, and we're really fortunate to get him. But I'll tell you what attracted me was not necessarily his expertise, because obviously you need domain expertise, but you need functional elements. Tony is somebody who has worked in very small companies, in academia, in research, but he's also worked for large companies. And what attracted me to him, besides his, checking the box on being an AI expert, checking the box on neuromorphic, is this is somebody who is incredibly customer focused, incredibly driven about market at the same time. So you have a CTO that's very practical, realizing that it's not just the science. He wants to help us build and continue to build this company, build a better product, and work with our customers. That's a rare combination of talent to get. Steve, came from Intel, which obviously think everybody's investors company knows who Intel is, and Habana, which is obviously an AI company that they bought, has very relevant expertise, has a really good set of understanding of the market dynamics. He's worked in a bigger company, so he understands the best practices, and he understands in a smaller, nimble company like Habana and now at BrainChip. He brings a lot of energy into it. He is very focused on driving our sales, and I work incredibly closely with him. I think and the investors know that we had, before I hired Steve, there were several months where I was running sales, and I continue to stay close. It's near and dear to my heart. I talk to Steve 7 days a week. I personally am involved in many key engagements and will continue to do so. So we're very happy with the team. And your second part of your question is how they fit in. They fit in perfectly. They're team oriented. They're respectful. They have opinions. They'll defend their opinions with facts. That's what you want out of an executive.
Fantastic. Speaking of sales, I know you've just mentioned that you're personally focused on securing a number of commercial contracts. Are you able to provide our shareholders with some insights into the commercial engagement process and how we fare against competitors in that process?
Sure. A lot to talk about here. And now, obviously I have to respect the confidentiality and other, but I'll share some thoughts. I love to share the beginning, and I want people to listen to this very carefully. The engagements that we're in now are very different than when I joined BrainChip a little over 2 years ago. Early engagements when I joined were companies that were looking at the technology and saying, this is interesting, and looking for use cases. The engagements we're in now are defined by companies with defined budgets and defined timelines to make a decision, which is a radically different profile of an engagement. So those are the ones that are making it to the top of the list with our resources and our energy and talent to work on. So that's probably the first point I really want to get to. You talk about in your question a little bit about the process. The timeline is long. There's no question about it. And we've highlighted it. And I know back a podcast or two, Antonio did a very elegant job about that timeline. So I won't repeat it, but it is long as you go through an evaluation process, then negotiation process, et cetera. And we are on that timeline. I stand by my comments that I've made earlier right now. We've not lost in a technical evaluation to date. We haven't. Now, what we have happened, we've had firms pause or slow down, as they look at the economic uncertainty of the world. Again, if you follow tech like I do every single day, the markets and technology, except for the few that are leading the top, like the Microsoft and Amazons, they're slowing down, and all companies in the world are very cautious. So engagements we're seeing, certainly some are postponing the timelines. We've had a few that are just holding right now altogether. But the point is, we're not losing. We're definitely not losing anywhere at all across that line. And I think what it speaks to, let's come back to the first question that we talked with at CES, or one of the first questions. The trends are growing. So there's no question companies that are even slowing down are saying, I'm going to do something. I just can't stop because the market's going to keep forward and my competitions keep going forward. So there's a lot of pressures for companies to go forward, and new companies will come forward. So I'm very excited about the sales prospects.
In early December last year, the board conducted its annual strategy session at our Laguna Hills head office. Are you able to provide some detail about some of the key outcomes of the strategy session and whether there are any major changes coming this year?
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of it, but I will kind of give you some more commentary. We kind of covered it in some of the questions, but it is good. It's best practices to have a strategy session. And I would call it part strategy, part operation. And in there, we go through a variety of topics, understanding the markets we compete in, the competition itself, our strengths, where our operational plans are around development, where we look at around sales. We cover all that. So that's part strategy, part operation. And back to your question about cash, how are we deploying our resources in there? And so they get a comprehensive view how myself and the management team looks at the market and our set of activities and how we're going to go throughout the course of the year. So when you hear comments, say, from our chairman who says he's comfortable with our strategy and direction, they get a very intimate look besides our normal board meetings. They get a very intimate look at all the details during that session. Also related to that is just what you said. We talked about cash. We're stress testing the appropriate use of cash and the trade-offs that we're making through all that. No major changes. What I say about strategy, and I think it's really important for companies, world-class companies don't change their strategy overnight. World-class companies don't hold on to them indefinitely. They look and they adjust accordingly. We believe strongly in the IP business model. We know it will yield fruits over a period of time. What we have learned, certainly from the EdgeBoox, and we're looking at other type of models, that it's well worth taking some of our resources, but the preponderance will still go to IP and develop those revenue streams as well. And that's what you're going to see from us this year. Continue leaning into the IP and spend judiciously on things like the EdgeBoox and one other area, that we're working on right now.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sean. And finally, can you discuss your next investor roadshow to Australia?
Sure. In a couple of weeks. No, and at a simple level, this way, Tony, I will be in Australia the first week of March, and I look forward to seeing as many people as I can. And I know that's in your hands to set that up, but I look forward to those meetings. I was there in November, and I got some very strong feedback that I needed to be back before the AGM, and I made a commitment, and I'm fulfilling that commitment, and I look forward to doing that. Additionally, I will be doing a virtual investor roadshow on February 27th, which is intended for our shareholders who can't get to see me face to face to ask their questions live. And I look forward to taking those questions. So I'll be over there the first week. It'll be only a 3 or 4 day visit. I am stopping on my way over to see some of these prospects that we're working with and need to get back for other things. But I do look forward to spending 3 or 4 days in Australia.
Thank you for listening to episode 4 of the BrainChip Quarterly Investor Podcast with my guest, BrainChip CEO, Sean Hehir. The next Quarterly Investor Podcast will be released in April 2024. Until then, on behalf of BrainChip, thank you for your support and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the BrainChip Quarterly Investor Podcast. Please remember to rate and review on your favorite podcast platform. You can always learn more at BrainChip.com.